Hello everyone, my name is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I have my August book haul and wrap up. So this month, I feel like I did okay reading wise. It's not as many items as last month, but it is more pages, which is great. And then I do have a pretty normal book haul for me, I guess, because I feel like this is very similar to what I've had in previous months. So I'm not going to have too much explanation before we actually get into the book haul. It's just what it is. We have books to haul, we have books to talk about for the wrap up. This month was also the magical readathon month, and I did finish that, so I will also talk about what books I used for what prompts for that as well. But I think that is about it for that. We're gonna jump into the haul first. I will have a timestamp down below in case you want to skip that and go straight to the wrap up. But that's what we're gonna do. So I have 12 books to haul. Some of these I have already read, most of them I haven't. That is no surprise. But we are going to be starting with something that I do feel like is sort of a surprise to me. I was contacted by a publisher asking if I wanted to receive a finished copy of a book that was coming out by an author that I've read before. And I think it's because I technically do have the arc of this that I have not read yet, but I had the e-arc through NetGalley, and so I now have a finished copy of Where Peace is Lost by Valerie Valdez. This is the same author of the Chilling Effect series that I have been reading and really enjoying. That one had some hints of Mass Effect and stuff, and this is an entirely new adult sci-fi that I'm curious about because of the fact that I did like this author's writing style in the previous series. And the only thing is this book did come quite damaged, but I have no idea what the actual etiquette is of getting free books, so I'm not going to complain about it. But it did have an entire rip on the spine, but besides that, it's actually not too bad. I'm very curious, like I said, about this, and thank you so much to the publisher for sending this to me because I definitely want to get into this sooner rather than later. But it does say it's a cozy space fantasy novel, a refugee with a secret, a dangerous foe, and a road trip that could either save a planet or start a war. I'm not going to read too much into the summary besides that, just because I don't always like to read the summary of things once I already know I want to read them. I'd rather go in a little bit blind, but the cover is gorgeous. It's somebody that I like their work, so of course I said yes. Send me a finished copy. Then I actually did have a vlog where I went to Bookman's, which is a used bookstore, although they do have some new titles there as well. And I went there for Presley's birthday. He got to buy some stuff, and of course while I was there I had to buy some things too. So I will just quickly go through what I got there. I got Where the Drowned Girls Go by Shauna McGuire. This is one of the books in the Wayward Children series. I don't remember if it's number 6, number 7, I don't know. I have not read this one yet, but I am reading my way through the series, and so whenever I see a nice hardcover there, I have to pick it up because I get it at a discount. And then I also picked up the first 2 volumes of Descender by Jeff Lemire. So we have volume 1 called Tin Stars, and I actually did read this already. We'll talk about that in a second. And volume 2, Machine Moon. This is a sci-fi comic series that I have been really wanting to read for a while, and so when I saw them there, again, I get them half off. I had to pick them up. Let's move into some pre-orders. I do have Ravensong by TJ Klune. This is the Barnes & Noble edition, so it does have some foiling on the naked hardcover under the dust jacket. We have some really nice end papers. I like what they've been doing with these. And then there is the second part of a bonus story that I guess is traveling its way through the Barnes & Noble special editions, so I think there will be parts 3 and 4 next year when the next 2 books come out. I think Brother Song and Heart Song, I don't actually know which one is 3 and which one is 4, but this is the second book in the Green Creek series. I have not read this one yet, but I read Wolf Song back when it was still officially indie before it got picked up. Absolutely loved it. Knew I wanted to continue, and I just love these covers so much, so I pre-ordered this one this year. And then my other pre-order was The Blonde Identity by Ali Carter. I absolutely love that it has like a pink spine, because this is more of like an adult, I think there is romance, but sort of like a spy sort of thing. Like Ali Carter is the author of the Gallagher Girls series, which is a YA like spy series that I loved when I was like that age, and so I'm very curious about this one. I definitely want to read it, but this follows like one woman who is like a twin to a spy. So like they're identical twins. She somehow has amnesia, doesn't remember that she's not the spy, but her sister is. I don't know exactly how that works, but like I need to read it. Then we have some book box books. So the first book box that we have here is going to be Illumicrate. August Illumicrate. The box was amazing. I should have probably filmed it as an unboxing, but I didn't because I just wanted to get into it, and so did Presley. But the items are really cool and with like fandoms that I actually enjoy. And then here's our book. It's Zhara by S.J. Jones. This is the first book in the Guardians of the Dawn series, which I've heard is sort of like Sailor Moon-ish, and I'm curious how that's going to work. But this is like the original cover, which is gorgeous. So everything that Illumicrate did is like extra for the book. So I guess first off, here are the edges. Again, very pretty. We have this underneath the dust jacket. It's not my favorite, but I'm curious how this is going to fit into the story, because it just says the maiden who was loved by death, and it definitely has like some art in here. And I'm not saying the art is bad, it's just like, I don't know, I feel like some of the other stuff that has been happening with some of the Illumicrate books, especially Under the Dust Jacket, I've liked that style better. But I appreciate it having like a full color thing on the naked hardcover. Here are our end papers. Again, very gorgeous. Like I almost wish the hardcover on the outside was more this kind of stuff, but it's fine. And it is also signed by the author, which is cool. So I like the idea of this. I love this cover, and I'm very curious about this book as well, because that's all I know really. Then we have Rainbow Crate. So the first book that we have is the traditionally published one. It's Stars Hide Your Fires. This is actually the original cover, because my Rainbow Crate dust jacket exclusive cover, which is this one, and it's very cool, was not folded the right way. It was so off that I had to refold it myself. So what I had done was refolded it, put the traditionally published cover on top over it to like protect it, and then put it under a stack of books. But it looks much better now. It looks like how it should. So here is that. This is going to be, I believe, sapphic sci-fi, and it looks like they're saying young adult, because I love how Rainbow Crate has like the nutrition facts on here. So for representation, we have sapphic, non-binary, queer normative world, inclusive gender system, and addiction. It is science fiction. The plot points, I guess, we have whodunit, spies, grand ball, and then enemies to allies to lovers. And like I said, they do say it is 100% a young adult book, but I am glad that I ended up fixing the dust jacket. I wasn't actually entirely too sure how that was going to look until right now. And then Rainbow Crate also does indie published books, and I absolutely have been loving their editions of these because they're so gorgeous. So the indie published book for this month was Prince and Assassin by Tavia Lark. Like, the art and everything on here is gorgeous. Here's the back, just in case you want to see. We do have really nice edges. Like, the quality of these books is amazing. Oh, we do have a signed bookplate, which matches like the cover art. Here's our end papers, which I do really enjoy. Oh, I don't think I noticed that the nutrition facts on this part, like the inner flap, has a kitty on there. That's cute. And then here is what Under the Dust Jacket looks like. And I think we probably, yep, have quotes on this side. So their nutrition facts for this one says representation, we have gay, lesbian, black, East Asian, and South Asian. Genre is going to be fantasy, 100%. Plot is assassins, princes, pining, and hidden identities, and it is 100% an adult book. The last physical book that I picked up this month is New Adult by Timothy Janowski. This is another one that I've already read. We will talk about it in the wrap-up. But this was a book that I read as an ARC near the beginning of the month, and when I saw it in a store, knew I had to have it, so I did pick it up to have it on my shelves. This is a adult. I know it says new adult, but it's not actually like a new adult book. It's an adult book, adult male romance that is sort of like 13 going on 30. They also say meets One Last Stop. I don't really see that one as much, except for the fact that it's like a semi-magical sort of thing. 13 going on 30 is a very good way to describe this. And so yeah, I had to pick this up as well. Then we did actually have 2 ebooks that I picked up. They're both from the same series because the author was having like a free sale sort of thing for these books, one right after the other, and so I had to pick it up. The first one is the Herbwitch's Apprentice, and the second one is the Herbwitch Princess. These are both by Zhao. Part of the reason that I wanted to read these is it sounded good, but also there should be illustrations in at least one of the print editions. I don't know about in the actual like ebook editions, but by the author. And so some of the stuff that I was seeing on Instagram from this author, I was just like super interested. Let's go into the Herbwitch Apprentice summary so you guys sort of know what this is about. It says, in the kingdom of Oldaria, dabbling in witchcraft is a sure way to the guillotine. When 16-year-old debutante Amarante Flora finds out she's half-witch, all she wants is to get rid of her magic. After all, zapping Prince Ash in the midst of high society's season certainly won't help her troublemaking reputation. But the more her powers grow, the more she realizes magic and the witches who possess it are not as dangerous as she was led to believe. When the queen falls mysteriously ill, Amarante knows there are far more dangers lurking in the palace than in Witch Village. Among potion brewing and glittering receptions, Amarante joins Prince Ash in an investigation before innocent witches are condemned. However, uncovering the culprit's schemes could mean exposing her magic, and exposing her magic would mean her very life and the contempt of the prince she is trying to help. So it says that it's obviously magic, and it's more of like, I guess, historical-ish, which I'm not as into, but it is like a cozy fantasy, cozy mystery, fantasy romance sort of thing. There's a lot of tags on Goodreads, but I'm interested, especially because it should have some illustrations in at least one of the editions, and it looks really cute, so yes. So that is going to be it for the book haul. Again, like I said, I hauled 12 things. 2 of them I read already though, so 10 things going on the TBR. But I did just do a huge unhaul as well, so it sort of balances out very well. My TBR is down to the lowest it's been in a while, so that's good. Now we're going to get into the wrap-up. I read 9 things in the month of August, although one of them is a DNF, and we will talk about that, for a total of 2,577 pages. Like I mentioned before, this is more pages than last month, even though it is less things than last month. The reading method, I did read 3 books physically, 4 as ebooks, and 2 as audiobooks. For the genre, I had 2 romance, 2 fantasy, 2 sci-fi, 2 paranormal, and 1 horror. And then for the format of book, 5 of them were novels, 3 were graphic novels, and 1 was a short story collection. 1 of those was indie published, whereas the rest, the other 8, were traditionally published. How I got it, this is, I think, quite all over the board. 3 of them were library books, 2 were books that I had bought this year, 2 were ARCs, 1 was a book I was gifted, and 1 was a book I owned previous to this year. This is one of those months that I actually have read more things that I did not currently already own than other months. Like, most of the months I've been reading and really good about reading books off of my own TBR. This month somehow not as much. I mean, the book that I was gifted was on my TBR, the book that I owned was on my TBR, the books that I bought were on my TBR, but the ARCs and the library books, not so much. So, going into the star rating, because this is the part that we're very interested in, right? I had a pretty good month. I mean, I did have 1 DNF. I had 1 2.5 star, 2 3 stars, 1 4 star, but 4 5-star reads. And so those were the first 4 books I read this month. The first 4 books I read this month were all 5 stars. I thought I was gonna have an amazing month. It ended up going downhill from there, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but like I definitely probably jinxed myself in my head because I was like, oh my gosh, every single book at the beginning of the month was a full 5 stars. I was enjoying everything. It did go downhill a little bit from there. So my average rating for the month is 3.7, which is not bad. It's actually better than my entire year average right now, but the first 4 books were 5s, and then I didn't have another 5-star. So we are going to now go actually into the books that I read this month and talk about those, starting with my DNF and going to my favorite book of the month. Okay, so starting off with the DNF, I have Blackwater by Jeanette Arroyo and Ren Graham. This is a graphic novel. I think it might have been originally some sort of webcomic, and I saw this somewhere on someone's Instagram or something like that, where I was curious enough that I borrowed this from my library and did not finish it. I think I mentioned how far I got in my review. DNF'd on page 66 out of a total page number count of 304. This is a book that was touted as being like LGBTQ, horror, small town. They say it is Riverdale meets Stranger Things, and those things got me curious, and I did not buy this, obviously. I got it on loan from my library, but it is so problematic. The way that everything is happening in here, I just could not stand it. We do have characters that are LGBTQ, we do have characters that have disabilities, we have things that like I would potentially want to find in books and read about, but the way that they were handled was just not good. Characters, like every single character was a bad character. Nobody was likable, nobody was, you know, had a motivation that I wanted to read from. And so yeah, I got 66 pages in and just had to DNF this book because I just could not make myself read anymore. I didn't even think I got to any of the actual horror paranormal stuff. I didn't even get there. I couldn't get past the main characters of the story and couldn't get past how the authors were portraying both the LGBTQ stuff and the disabilities. And so yeah, DNF'd. Moving on to my 2.5-star read, I have Exorsisters Volume 2 by Ian Boothby. I think this is the finale of this like duology comic series thing. This I did actually use for a magical readathon prompt, which was to read a book that had a word in the title that was from the last song I listened to. I know in my TBR video I ended up picking like American Idiot and then I picked American Royalty, but by the end of the month, like we were getting close to the end of the month, I knew that was not going to happen, so I listened to another song, like I did another randomized sort of thing on Spotify, and I got Hey Soul Sister by Train, and so Exorsisters has the word sister in the title. It was something I borrowed from the library because I have the first one, and I think I originally gave it like a 4-star, but this one just did not work for me. It's been a while since I read that first one, so I don't know what I would give that one now, like if I was to reread it, but this one just felt very rushed. I didn't fully understand the plot or the conclusion to this. It is very overly like religious, demons, angels stuff, and I just was like, I was expecting more from it because I did like the first one previously, so I don't know what it was, if it was actually just not as well written as the first book or if it was me and I've grown since I've read the first one, but it's a 2.5 star. It was just sort of like but on like the bad side of Moving into my 3-star reads, the first one I have here is a low 3-star, and it's going to be I Am Not Your Chosen One by Evelyn Benvie. This was something that came in a rainbow crate that I was really wanting to read because I mean, look at how gorgeous this book is. It was something that I actually had on my radar before Rainbow Crate had it in their book box. I wanted to try it like on Kindle Unlimited and that kind of thing. I just don't think the writing style and the characters and how the story is told is for me. So this is supposed to be more of like a sort of cozy fantasy, a little bit of fantasy romance, although the romance is not actually played up very much. And I know part of that is that we have like different representation in here, and one of them is gray sexual male, and so I understand that they're trying to lean into more of like the asexual, gray sexual side of stuff, but the romance wasn't ever really pulled into the forefront even though I know like romantic identities and sexual identities don't have to be the same thing together, you know what I mean? But also the writing style I had a hard time following, because this is an adult novel. Our main character of Kel is in his 20s, but he acts much younger. He doesn't really think about the consequences of his actions, and so a lot of the stuff that he does was not things that I would have wanted him to go for. We're in his head a lot, which makes sense, but I think because of how the author is trying to write the story, we don't get many answers at all. And I think it's because Kel doesn't get any answers either, but when things are trying to be explained to him, my head could not wrap itself around the way things were being explained. Like, I still do not think I understand a single thing about the prophecy and the chosen one aspect that is supposed to happen in this story. This is the first book in a duology, but I don't think I'm going to continue with the series because I don't understand a single thing. One other thing that annoyed me to no end is Kel gives nicknames out to a lot of people, and they're very weird, and a lot of them I don't understand, and I would rather him just pick a name, like find out their name and ask their name and get their name, instead of being weird. Like, he calls Ansel like Squishy Marshmallow or something like that for so long before he learns his name. He's constantly giving people nicknames, and I did not like that aspect. And then one other thing, and again, I said this is a 3-star because it wasn't horrible. This is more of a me thing than anything else. But one other thing, and this is not on the author, this is, I guess, on Rainbow Crate. One thing that really pulled me out of the story a lot is most of the time, like 90% of the time when we had italics in here, they're not lined up with the words they're supposed to be lined up with. And so you would have a word that has like a normal letter and then half italics, and then the italics would continue to the next word. And it really bugged me, because it just doesn't look the way it's supposed to. And so it was very hard to read that way, because I would see it and it would jar me out of what we were reading. So like here, can we see it has the pretty rude, the P and the R are both not italicized. Down here we have was getting, and like the W is not italicized, but then the G in getting is. And so a lot of that, I don't know. It's a formatting issue. It is definitely not on the author that way, but I could not stand it for printing out however many copies that they printed out and sent to people. Like, that's a big issue for me, and obviously they're not going to get printed again, but that was something that annoyed me. And this one also fit a magical readathon prompt. This one was the one with the tarot card generator. I ended up getting Judgment or something with an angel on it. We did this during my TBR game. And so angel wings right here, it fit. Moving on to my next 3-star. This is a slightly higher 3-star, not a 3.5 or anything like that, but it is a 3, and it's going to be Dragon Pearl by Yoon-Ha Lee. This one was the gift that I had. This was given to me by Nikki from Nerdy Nikki, which I really appreciate. This is something that I really wanted to like. It's a sci-fi story, it's a middle grade story, and it does have Korean mythology. So this is like a pretty good mix of sci-fi and fantasy, but I think that is also the detriment. Like, I was really interested in how that was going to mix the sci-fi and the fantasy mythology aspects, but this book is quite short, and it was trying to do way too much in my opinion, so that we only got certain parts of what I felt could have been so much better. We do have a character who is a 9-tailed fox, or a kitsune. She doesn't actually have 9 tails, but her brother has gone missing, and she decides that she's going to run away from home and try and find him. And in this process, it's like getting onto spaceships and going to other planets, and like it's very sci-fi that way, but they do bring in the like kitsune aspects and dragon people and tiger people and goblin people, and like there's lots of mythology here. And so at times I wanted more from both the fantasy aspect and the sci-fi aspect, because it was just so much trying to be shoved into like a couple hundred pages. Actually barely 300 pages, 300 pages. I just really wanted more. I know there is more in this series, but this also feels like a standalone, so I don't know if I'm going to continue. I looked up the summary for book 2. Book 2 looks like it's going to be having a different main character that is potentially then going to get thrown into our main character here, and then they might have to work together. But this felt like a very good standalone, so I think I might just leave it like that. But it's a 3-star because I really was just wanting more from both the mythology aspect and the sci-fi aspect. I like the idea of having a sci-fi setting, but like having all these like mythology things just like continue on like it was something from the real world. Like in Korea, like they have these mythologies, and so they're treating it like in the future these things are still happening and all that kind of thing. I liked that aspect, but wasn't exactly as good as I was hoping for. This also fit for a magical readathon prompt, which was to read a book with a red cover. Moving into my 4-star read, I have Night of the Living Queers. This one was edited by Shelley Page and Alex Brown, and we actually had a lot of different authors. The ones that they mentioned here, I think actually Shelley Page and Alex Brown each had a story in the collection, but we also had Ryan Douglas, Kaylin Bayron, Sarah Farizan, Kosako Jackson, Tara Sim, Rebecca Kim Wells, Trang Tan Tran, Vanessa Maltaban, MX Liu, Maya Gittleman, and Aida Shonabar. So there were 13 stories all about Halloween. That Halloween had like a blue moon, so they had like these common elements, at least in the background of the story. None of the stories actually connected, but the other sort of common element is the fact that everybody that wrote the stories is a person of color, and all of the characters are a person of color in some way. They were also all queer, you know, Night of the Living Queers, and I did give this an overall like 4-star. I think when I averaged out the ratings I gave for every single story, it was a low 4-star, or like close to like a 3.7, 3.8, and so I did round up. This is one of those ones that a lot of the stories I wanted more from. They were all Halloween-y, sort of spooky in some way. Some obviously were really good. I had some favorites. So my favorite stories, I have 4 of them here actually. The Visitor by Kaylin Bayron, Anna by Shelley Page, Hey There Demons by Tara Sim, and Save Me From Myself by Aida Shonabar. I think I gave all of those 5 stars, with Anna by Shelley Page potentially being a 4.5, but looking back I think it might have been a full 5. I really liked those ones. And one thing that was also a bonus for me with this is every single author here is actually one that I have not read before, so this gave me like a quick look into their work, which I really appreciated. And this one was not something that was originally on my TBR, but I did end up switching it out because I did have this as an arc for a different arc. And for the magical readathon, I used this as a bookseller recommendation because even though I read it as an arc, I read it before it came out. This is actually one that I got through NetGalley, but I got it because they emailed me beforehand saying, hey, based on things that you like, we think you're gonna like this one. You can just request the book and you get it for, not for free, but like you're automatically approved for it. So like all I had to do was go through that link and I could immediately get the arc. I didn't have to request it and get the overrided permission for it. So I was treating it as a recommendation because it came through the publisher saying, hey, based on things that you like, we think you're gonna like this one. So that's what I did for that. Okay, and then moving into my 5-star reads, which were also the first 4 books I read this month. The first one I have here is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This was a reread for me, so that's actually why it's on the lowest end of my 5-star reads, because I wanted to have a new favorite, but I really did like reading this again. This is the first time I think I've reread this since I originally read it, and it still really holds up. I will say now it does still have some Harry Potter references in here because this is the first edition of it. I believe they might have taken that out in subsequent editions when everything else happened, but I really do like this one. I also ended up watching the movie. I did not like the movie as much. I felt like they took out too much of what I did like about this one, but it was a solid male-male romance, like rom-com sort of movie, just not as good as I would have wanted from a, you know, retelling or adaptation. But yeah, I really liked this one. I feel like a lot of people know what this is about. It is a male-male romance. It's between the son of the President of the United States and one of the princes of England. I really like this one. I do think it has a little bit more spice than I remember from like reading it previously, but it's not like a play-by-play sort of thing. Not exactly as like spicy as probably some people would want from their books, but just keep that in mind. And this did also fit for a magical readathon prompt, which was to read without touching the floor. I read it sitting on the couch. So my next 5-star is Descender Volume 1 by Jeff Lemire. So this was one that I said I picked up at the used bookstore, and I actually did end up reading it quite soon after I got it, because I could not help myself, especially because this fit for a magical readathon prompt, which was to read a book from a completed series. This one is completed. It has been completed for a few years now, and I really, really enjoyed this. This is a sci-fi series that is like sort of about AI and robots and stuff. I don't know everything because I've only read the first volume, but basically in this first volume we have these like gigantic robot or machine things come over the different planets that humans have populated, and I think there are some different like alien species in here as well, and there's like some sort of like cataclysmic event that these robots have started, and because of that humanity and the different alien races have decided to like eradicate all AI and robots and stuff, and then this boy robot wakes up years later on an abandoned like mining facility or something like that, and we go from there. So he is just waking up in this world where robots are sort of like being hunted, and he is an AI robot. So I really enjoyed the first volume. Definitely want to read more. I have volume 2, so that should be happening sooner rather than later, hopefully. I do also really like the art style. The artist, I believe, is Dustin Wen, and it's very like watercolor-esque, which is cool because I didn't expect that to really be, I guess, a common way to do a comic graphic novel sort of thing, but it really works. I really like it, and so yeah, 5 stars. The next one I read was Scout's Honor by Lily Anderson. This is the same author of Undead Girl Gang, which I read a couple years ago and gave like 4 stars. This one I loved even more. I gave it a full 5 stars. I listened to this on audio as well, which is slightly surprising to me for giving it 5 stars because of the fact that like I've been trying to listen to things on audiobook like when I'm out driving and like going on errands and stuff with the kids, and sometimes I feel like the audiobook is a detriment. Like I would have given it maybe a higher rating in my head, but I really liked the narrator of this audiobook. I don't know off the top of my head who it was. I might have to like see if I can find that, but I really, really liked the way that the story was told. The pacing of it was really great, and I just really enjoyed this one. And so yeah, even though I listened to it on audiobook, I gave it a full 5 stars. I definitely want a copy for my shelves now because it was so much fun. This is basically a cross between like Girl Scouts and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's about a group of scouts. They're called Ladybirds instead of Girl Scouts, and apparently they are sort of at war with the Girl Scouts. Like they mention them every so often being like, we're not the same as them, but they are tasked with being almost like a secret society that hunts and kills like demon-y things that come through based on emotions into our worlds. I really, really enjoyed this one, and so yeah, I read this. I got it through my library as an audiobook, and I read it because of the fact that I needed a book with the word Lily in the title or author or cover for the Magical Readathon. It was not something that I already owned, which is why I got it through the library, but I'm really glad I read it. I read it because Lily Anderson is the author's name, so it had Lily, and yeah, I really, really liked this one. I definitely need to get a copy. And then my favorite book of the month, New Adult by Timothy Janowski. Scout's Honor could have really pulled this out, except for the fact I think that it is a little bit, you know, more YA, obviously, and I've been finding a lot that my favorite books of the month are adult books. But yeah, this is a rom-com male romance, adult romance, 13 going on 30 sort of thing. I absolutely love that movie, so that was part of the reason I requested the ARC of this, and now I have a copy because I loved it that much. It really does fulfill like what you're looking for from a book that is being compared to 13 going on 30. It is not exactly like that, but the concept of a character who's actually in his 20s somehow mysteriously and magically going to be 30 and not realizing how he got from point A to point B, and then trying to fix his life and his problems and things like that. It really delivered on that. I also really did like the romance in here. It was just something that was very heartwarming to me. They did have some really good jokes in here as well. Like the writing style was very funny. Part of that obviously is the author, but part of it is also our main character is a comedian as well. And so I did appreciate how they put the jokes in, both through just like him being funny, but also him trying to be a comedian. So I really enjoyed this one. I love the characters. I love the writing style. This was my first Timothy Janofsky, although I guess technically this is the third in a series of like companion romances, things like that. I definitely want to read more because I had such a good time with this one. But yeah, this is my favorite book of the month. And so that is going to be it. I do think this video went on a little bit too long, but that's okay. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more videos. I do have videos going up on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so I will see you then. Bye!